This is Amy Grace doing IOC practice for Macbeth. This is an excerpt from the play Macbeth, which was written by William Shakespeare in 1606. The play was for the English monarch King James I, and it was set in the 11th century Scotland. It does have links to the day it was written because it uses the fear of the supernatural and the fear of being overthrown as a king, which was a big worry of King James I, and he had some involvement with witch trials as well as other supernatural things that the people were worrying about at the time. In this specific excerpt, we see Lady Macbeth desiring for all the chaos to be over with about the killing of Duncan and their rise to power to be complete. However, Macbeth explains to her that this is only the beginning because there's a lot more they have to do to fulfill the prophecy, and a lot more loose ends of the prophecy that have yet to be fulfilled. And in the end of the excerpt, we see the two decide that they must continue to entertain their guests, which are there for a party as they are, king and queen at this point in the play, and that they must disguise their foul deeds and their immoral actions that the other people still do not know about. So in this commentary, I'd like to focus on two aspects of this extract. First, I'll be looking at appearance versus reality, and second, I'll be looking at the theme of guilt. So in the first one of the motif of appearance versus reality, this is seen in a lot of different places in this excerpt, but the first one that stood out to me was in Lady Macbeth Begins, before Macbeth enters. And she begins actually with an equivocation, "Knots had, all's spent," and continues on to rhyme multiple times as she displays her worries, saying that it would be safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtful joy, which just shows that she's actually really worried and stressed and about this situation. But when Macbeth comes in, she seems to be begging him to let it go, and actually says in line 10, "What's done is done," when in reality she is struggling in her head, which also is foreshadowing for her kind of mentality to slowly get weaker as the weight of their action starts to weigh on her. And so that's the first evidence of appearance versus reality of what she says to herself, and how in reality she's really scared, but how she presents herself to her husband and to when she knows that people are listening is to still be that strong figure. Another piece of evidence for appearance versus reality is where Macbeth says, "We have scorched the snake, not killed it." And in his following lines, he basically explains that it seems as though they should be done, but when in reality they're not. And so I think the verb scorched really pulls out this idea that they have done a lot, but that scorched, although it carries a heavy connotation of very like burned and damaged, it's not killed and it's not ended like they would like it to be, and it's not over, and they're kind of using death and finished it together as they compare the snake to Duncan and to their rise to power. And then later in line 33, after they've kind of gone back and forth, Macbeth says, "In these flattering streams, and make our faces vizards to our hearts, disguising what they are." This is just another piece of evidence for appearance versus reality, because they are now they see that they are in reality very dirty for what they've done. And Lady Macbeth also says, sleek over your rugged looks, be bright and jovial among your guests tonight. And just that they see that they are rough and that they have done these bad things. And so where the reality is this heavy guilt that they have to carry, they're acknowledging that they must appear to their guests that they have everything together, so that they can continue to get away with their evil deeds, the ones they've done and the ones that they knowingly may commit more, since they have, again, yet only scorched the snake and not killed it. And then, so for my second theme that I want to look at is the theme of guilt, which I mentioned a little bit briefly earlier. Is this whole section kind of comes from their guilt of it can't be done, and a lot of it is that the appearance versus reality is more of a falling apart outwardly, and that they need to continue to look like they have it together and not let people see what they've actually done. But this guilt is almost a falling apart inwardly, as they want to pretend like they haven't done these things when in reality they have, and these bad things have happened, and kind of like how they're trying to deal with those. And so again, that kind of goes back to that equivocation in line 1 that Knots had all spent, and that just shows that all the doubt and fear that this whole situation is caused because Lady Macbeth is claiming that they haven't gained anything, though they've put everything into it, and desired for so much. And her whole first line even admits that she would rather be dead, that it would be easier to be dead than to be in this guilty and unsure place that they are because of what they've done. And you can see this in her line where she says doubtful joy. And they both actually comment on the fact that it would be better to be dead. As she says it in line 3, and Macbeth says it in line 17, where he says, better be with the dead, whom we, to gain our peace, have sent to peace. Which again is pointing to the fact that they have killed Duncan, and that they have also killed Banquo and attempted to kill Fleance, although they were not successful. And I think in Macbeth's section, all of his diction and word color is very poignant, that he's very distressed, as diction such as the word scorched, as I mentioned before, and suffer, affliction, restless ecstasy. All of the words are very bright and biting, which show that he's very distressed, as well as very, he understands what he's done, and like that he realizes the weight. All of the words are very weighty and biting. And as he says, words such as torture and treason and malice. It's also very violent. Yet they still want to pursue this peace that they seem to not be able to accomplish. And I think that another evidence of their guilt is in the fact that they have to appear differently to their guests than they really are. And so just this combination of guilt and doubt, and also in a way he associates guilt with a poison, as he mentions both a snake and a scorpion, saying in line 35 that his mind full of scorpions is my mind. And both of those are poisonous animals, and just the idea that guilt is poisonous and as it affects the whole body. And where they did one action, it has led to so much more that they have to deal with mentally, and that they have to also physically do, as they had to kill Banquo and attempted to kill Fleance. And so overall, we see how Shakespeare uses the motif of appearance versus reality and the theme of guilt to show how a moral ambition, which is this desire for power, destroys those who give into such desires, as we see both their plan outwardly falling apart in the appearance versus reality, and inwardly falling apart through the guilt that they must carry with them.